I want to go back, he wants to go back. I want to go back to the farm, far away from home, with a milk pail on my arm. I miss the rooster, the one that used to wake me up at 4 a.m. down on the farm.
I'm Scott Payne, the old farmer. I've been seeing on YouTube quite a few people talking about how to take care of cast iron pots and pans. And everyone has their own favorite way of doing things. And as we get older and older in life, we learn that there's more than one way of doing things, and it still can be a correct way of doing it. Now, I've been cooking, first starting out with the help from learning to cook from my aunts. My mother was not much of a cook. Her talents were elsewhere. And so I had the opportunity to do a lot of the family cooking. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And the older that I got to the point where when I was driving, I also got the groceries too. So I kind of did the whole thing, from buying the groceries to cooking it, doing the dishes, the whole thing. And much of what I cooked with is cast iron. And everybody's saying you can't use soap with cast iron, it's this, it's that. Don't worry about it. A well-seasoned pan, you don't have to worry about it. Now, don't beat it to death with an SOS pad and think you're going to hang on to your seasoning in the pan. But if you have a well-seasoned pan, and this one's been seasoned for, I would say about 20 years. I remember about 20 years ago, had a problem with something burning into it to the point where I just had to heat it up almost to red, scrape it out, and then start over re-seasoning the pan. But even if you do wash it too hard and you lose your seasoning in it, it's no big deal. You wipe it down with a lot of oil, stick it in the oven at 200 for a couple of hours, pull it out, wipe out the additional oil, let it cool down naturally, and it'll be fine. Be careful of hot oil. It can burn you even at 200 degrees, so be careful when you pull it out of the oven. But cooking with cast iron is probably one of the healthiest way of cooking. It's best if you do not use the slick-free Teflon style or the easy-coated pans, because those are chemicals that we have not grown up as a species with, and therefore they're finding out that it's causing problems. But basically, when you're talking about cleaning a skillet, lots of water is a good idea. I go through with a hamburger flipper type spatula, and believe it or not, if you buy it from a restaurant supply house, they're only a couple of $3 each, so they're not expensive at all. You go to the big box store, you might pay $20 for it. Restaurant supply shop, you might a couple of $3 for it, so it's not expensive. So basically, I start out with warm water, let the faucet run, and just be scraping the pan out. Scrape the hard stuff out. Okay? You might have to do it a couple of times. But you want to get the scuzzies out. And then what I do, this is a soap brush, a little bit of soap in it, and push the button and lets a little bit of soap out. That way I'm not just deluging the pan with a lot of soap, but it's nice to get the surface oil off using just a little bit of soap and water so it doesn't feel greasy when you're done washing and drying your skillet. And after getting the first layer or two of grease off, you can see that there might be a spot or two that needs a little bit of scraping. If it does, I'll go ahead and do it. But if it's a well-seasoned pan, chances are, if you cook properly, you're not going to have a problem with scraping any more than what you had to do to get the crumbs off in the beginning on it. So it's very easy to do that. And then when you get done, see, pan's all washed, it's clean. It's not greasy feeling, it's not slimy feeling. but it still has a good seasoning on it. Let's see if I can get it in the lights there so you can see. This is all moisture on it. So the water is still beating up on this pan. There's lots of seasoning in it. So when you're done, simple. Turn it upside down in the sink, turn it upside down on the stove, turn it upside down on top of a dishcloth or some such thing, and let it air dry upside down. You do that, it's fine. Now there's other ways of cleaning cast iron if you're not in the kitchen. If you don't have a good spatula to scrape with, if you got those flimsy type that you get at the big box stores, you can take newspaper and crumple it up and use that to scrape out the pan. If you're careful, you can overheat the pan just a little bit so that the stuff that sticks starts getting brittle and burned and pop off the pan. That's another way. Sand is another way of cleaning a pan too, scouring it out. And if worst comes to worst, you can use steel wool to scour it out. Just don't use an SOS or Brillo or the equivalent soap pads, because they will lift your seasoning out. But a little light dose of water and soap over the top of it to get the surface grease off so it doesn't feel slimy is okay. Now, if you're camping and you don't have a fire going to disinfect your pan, and you might want to out while camping, if you have the time and if it's a sunny day, just leave the pan, skillet pan, just something like this, just leave it sitting out on the ground. Let the sun shine on it. You'll get it hot enough so that in most areas, most times, that it will sanitize the pan for you. But skillet is really the best way of cooking. We also have stock pots that are cast iron, not stock pot, Dutch ovens. And we even have a big saucepan shaped cast iron. So we have a lot of cast iron that we use. We've got cast iron griddles. Yes, we have the other style of cooking ware. We have stainless steel. We'll do stainless steel and have aluminum on the bottom to help conduct heat through the pan, but we don't use aluminum. You can get too much aluminum using aluminum pots and pans, and you can run into a health issue that takes a while to build up. So really the best thing to do, you do increase your iron with a cast iron skillet. If the doctor says you're a little low on iron, start cooking cast iron. It'll bring your iron back up. Well, that's about it. It isn't hard to clean a pan if you have the right tools. A good heavy duty, this thing is not going to bend, type of spatula. Scrape it out real good. A brush such as this. See, right there's the brush. Right there's the brush. With a little soap suds in it, just enough to lift the surface grease off. And then lots of hot water, and then flip it upside down like this and let it air dry. And that's the way to do cast iron skillets. If you want to do it the way the other people are doing it, it's not wrong, but here's another way of doing it that is right. So when people say, oh, I'll never use soap on cast iron, well, be careful, you'll be okay on it. Just don't beat it to death with soap, and you should be okay. This is the old farmer, Scott Bain, saying, be well.
Have a great week. Thank you again, and be safe.
Down on the farm.